adding. And if you added him this week, you loved life because he was coming off not just a great Sunday last week when we were ahead of that curve, but also a great Thursday night football as well. So last week, 7 for 9 for 164 and a touchdown. This week on Thursday, 5 for 5, 77 and a touchdown. He didn't even play the first 2 weeks of the year, and he's already a top 10 tight end in scoring, if you can believe it. Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Travis Hunter, Joe, is a part-time wide receiver. As I've told people from the moment he was drafted, there's zero chance long-term that they'll continue to do this in terms of playing offense and defense. They're going to have to pick a position with him. Brian Thomas, he was unbelievable. Talking to the Jaguars about him last season, he was so far ahead of schedule where they thought he'd be super smart. He had a wrist injury, by the way. We need to mention that, Joe, earlier this season.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
SMU is undefeated. You got Louisville that knocked off Miami. Yeah. Miami has one loss. There's multiple teams that potentially can make a run for an ACC championship. So their backs are still against the wall. Like Georgia Tech is not a shoo-in right now just because they're undefeated, because they still have to play Georgia at the end of the year as well. Even though it's out of conference, that can knock them out of the playoff.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
$17,848 have been bet on this question, Joe Acalshi. How many pro football games will Taylor Swift attend this season?
They average an average of 9.3 games during this season here, and a lot of that has to do with her reduced touring schedule, and this maybe being his final NFL season.
Incredible stuff here.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We are live on SportsGrid on Halloween night. A happy Halloween to all of you out there. Kevin Walsh from the Decisions Desk as we have ourselves quite a treat of a Friday slate. Many people said, K-Dub, are you going to dress up for Halloween on air? I said, yes. Can you guess what I am? I'm sharp. You had to see it coming. Why not? Listen, we're excited about tonight. There's a lot of good options on this menu, but none bigger than game number 6 in the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays handling business on the road take not only back home field advantage in the series, but now need to win one of 2 on their home field to be World Series champions. They enter tonight at minus 235 to win the series, but a dog to win the game. As they have been in every single one of the first 5 games of this series, as they are tonight, as they would be if there is a Game 7 tomorrow. Tonight's number, although I'm not sure there's a single pitcher the Dodgers could throw anywhere at all. Like, I don't even know if Clayton Kershaw would be a dog. But tonight, with Yamamoto on the mound, you knew LA would be booked strongly. Yet, this number has worked in one direction the entire way, and that is towards Toronto. As I think a lot of bettors probably have 2 thoughts, if not both. One, how much can you really ask of Yoshinobu Yamamoto in a single postseason? We are in an era where pitchers don't go deep. He has thrown a complete game in consecutive starts. He didn't have a complete game in the regular season. It is abnormal to have a pitcher do this in 2025. I mean, it's not really normal to throw complete games in any era, in a postseason. It's just very impressive stuff. It's a lot on his plate. The other thought, though, is the Blue Jays are just better. Now, what's interesting is that notion, I think it's picking up steam. It's actually ridiculous. The Blue Jays aren't a better team. They are playing much better. They are answering the moment significantly more so than the Dodgers are. The Dodgers, offensively, have not woken up at any point in this postseason. Their manager doesn't pull the right strings, and we'll talk about that curse if this ends, how it's trending. Can the Dodgers step up and respond? As we get closer, people will probably want to run and clip this if this ends up a Dodgers in 7, but I'll just say it. Do the Dodgers feel tough, or do they feel like a bunch of front runners? Because it feels like the latter to me. It feels like a group, when everything's going great, it's chest out, it's up high, it's front and center, it's rooting Ohtani on, instead of lifting up Ohtani or giving or meeting him in the moment. We're going to talk a little bit more about kind of the up and down nature of this postseason for Shohei Ohtani. And we're going to talk a lot more about tonight's slate, though, on this show, because it's one game. And a lot of you are going to be interested in getting in the mix in a number of ways, including the NBA Cup. It is back, and it is glorious. We love an NBA Cup here on Game Time Decisions, and I promise this, and we will deliver a Kevin 7 NBA Cup futures tonight. It is group play. The first night it begins, and there are a few big spots. Boston and Philadelphia, with a Sixers group who are not only 4-0, but booked as favorites against the C's. A Cavs team who is without Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, and still Darius Garland. They go early. And a late-night return of the Don, Luka Doncic against the Memphis Grizzlies. The Lakers look to grab the opening game of group play against Memphis. All of this will be impacting the markets here tonight. Speaking of impacted markets, the G5 college football playoff race found itself with a little bit of a shakeup last night because UTSA hosted Tulane and pulled off a comfortable upset, removing any of the Tulane odds to make the college football playoff from the board and shortening a number of prices around the landscape, including in action tonight, top 25 Memphis. Memphis on deck hosts Tulane. That is a tricky spot. Memphis cannot afford to look ahead again. They had a huge game against South Florida. So the week before, they lose as a 23.5-point favorite to UAB. They handle business against South Florida. That's how they have the number 25 next to them. Memphis cannot allow that same story to play out against Rice. They settle in as a 2-touchdown favorite. Not G5 action, but certainly going to garner some attention because Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels are in action tonight. And they have a chance to close as a road favorite, which says a lot more about Syracuse than it does UNC. I mean, give UNC credit. They have been far more competitive off of their most recent bye week, giving Cal a scare on the road and similarly to a ranked UAV team at home. But Syracuse has completely fallen apart and find themselves heading now to their third quarterback of this season as they are going to a complete unknown walk-on. That is just a very surprising thing for a program that I think to some degree tries to hang their hat on Fran Brown, their head coach, and his recruiting ability. Joseph Filardi out of Long Island, again, freshman walk-on is going to get the ball. Now, maybe he's going to surprise everybody here. I don't know how much tape Bill Belichick and the crew have been grinding on Filardi. So perhaps the element of surprise could work in their favor. Here on this Friday, though, we will continue to get you set up for the weekend. That means not only talking about the Saturday college football slate, but also, of course, Week 9 in the National Football League and a number of injuries that we continue to track leading into this game. There are some ups, there are some downs. You are not going to be seeing, though, this weekend and perhaps any other remaining weekend of this season, Travis Hunter. Super, super unfortunate. The news is pretty scarce right now out of Jacksonville as to what the injury is, but it was a knee injury at practice, and it might end his season. I don't know if we're going to get official word that it's a tear. I cannot imagine a world where Jacksonville is they're not, this isn't a 1-7 football team, right? So if they're going to sit there and actually say Travis Hunter's done, that probably tells us, again, is it a torn ACL? I don't know. I shouldn't speculate, but it's not good news. And it also, and you could argue more important to the NFL season, removes Brian Thomas Jr. from the trade block. I don't know if that does. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it goes the other way. But that is a big-name wide receiver who may not be available for teams who are looking to upgrade at that room, who was surprisingly, apparently, available. You also have DeAndre Swift and Ramondre Stevenson down, which gives some rookie running backs like Kyle Monangai, who we featured in our target player props this week, though those targets have completely shifted with the DeAndre Swift out news. And Trevion Henderson, who many people are waiting to officially take this starting role in New England, has now somewhat had it handed to him due to that injury. And we will close things out as we do each and every Friday with our picks party. And there are plenty. Not just best bets, which you won't have to wait all the way until the end for, but we have GTD-SU. Many of the touchdown market this week. There's a number that was just calling my name far too loud to ignore, and I wanted to let the people know about it. And our Friday 5 favorite bet of this NFL weekend. But let's really dive in. Game 6 World Series. Blue Jays Dodgers. Will this World Series go 7? We'll try and figure that out next, right here on SportsGrid. There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. It is Game Time Decisions. We are here on a Friday night. We're going to get you Kevin 7 for the NBA Cup. It does begin at 7 o'clock. You know what? I'm going to ask this question on air, but we are a team, so we'll be able to figure this out. In any world, should we do this NBA Cup first due to the fact that it starts at 7? Let's put this on the board, okay? Let's put this on the board, and then we're going to get to the World Series here because we've done this each year of the NBA Cup. I really appreciate it. It gives us more opportunities as a bettor. The games do feel bigger as the NBA Cup goes on. People who don't like it don't watch it. And that's by the way, when I say if you don't like it, don't watch it, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you don't like it, it's because you don't watch it. let's ignore that. I have 5 group winners, a team to win it all, and then we have ourselves an MVP pick that I think has a lot of bite to it here. So let's continue to go through this, okay? It begins with Group A in the East, the Cavs at plus 115. Now, I've gone through a number of books here. Prices are going to vary depending on where you are shopping. You'd love to get Cleveland at a plus price. And some of that injury news that recently did come out around Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley could make that a little bit could make that likelier. It is very important tonight that Cleveland is at home, and I think that that is key. But I'll put these together. The Cavs to win Group A and the Knicks to win Group C, both at a plus price, is very encouraging to me. They are the top 2 favorites overall when we talk about the Eastern Conference. I don't see a world where one of those teams is not through. And it would be minimal profit. I'm not acting like you're going to, lay out huge numbers on each to make it and just live in the middle. I think they both are the best teams in their group, set up nicely schedule-wise. But your worst-case scenario, truly, to me, is only one of them does not get there, and you will eke out a marginal profit, which we will take. For the Cavs, they should be unbeaten going into the final game against Atlanta. They will be a favorite, and they should be much healthier. You would think by the time they get there. For the New York Knicks, I love their spot tonight, and that is perhaps where eyes and minds can differ. They are going to an unbeaten Chicago Bulls coming off of a very bad loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. What makes the Bucks loss bad? They were up at halftime. Karl Anthony Towns was uninvolved and terrible. And the vibes around the Knicks now feel completely shifted after the 2-0 start followed by the 2 straight losses. The Knicks need this game more than they really should early season. And if the Knicks get this one here, kind of who is hosting who really, really works nicely for the Knicks to handle business in this group. Of the 2, I prefer New York to Cleveland, admittedly. They may be my favorite, they will win this because there are some value plays here for me, including the Boston Celtics in Group B at 5-1. Boston is a team that I was not in on coming into the season. While that has not entirely changed, I think the Boston Celtics have found themselves with a bit of momentum in their most recent 2 victories at New Orleans and then at Cleveland. And I think Boston going into this game against Philadelphia are very live. A 4-0 Philly team who has been flirting with a little bit of disaster in some recent runs. They've needed some late comebacks now in a lot of their games, including the opener against Boston. And if the Celtics win tonight, I think they could very well go to favorites here. Because if you look at the rest of that group, at the top of it is supposed to be the Orlando Magic. They've been completely unimpressive. I'm unmoved by the Pistons. I think the favorite should arguably be the winner of tonight's game between Boston and Philly. I love that Boston price at 5-1. The next 2 may not be surprising because they do line up a little bit more with my preseason futures. But again, I think the schedules have broke well for them. It starts with the Minnesota Timberwolves at 4-1. Minnesota has fallen into a very nice spot with the Cup schedule because Anthony Edwards should be back in plenty of time. Also, their group is just not as threatening as others. It's pretty simple. The layout for group number A is Minnesota or Oklahoma City. The Suns, the Kings, and the Jazz are supposed to be 3 of the worst teams in the West. We're getting 4-1 on Minnesota, who might be winning in the final game against the Thunder. It's too good of a number to pass up on, as is the Memphis 5-1 price. If you look at Group B, the Clippers have not really lived up to expectations. Dallas has not lived up to expectations. New Orleans is worse than I thought they were going to be. Now you get to tonight, Memphis against LA. Luka being back might throw a little bit of a wrench into the plan here. The Los Angeles Lakers, we've heard, expect LeBron back November 15th. They play a Cup game on the 14th. I'm sorry, but LeBron coming back the day after a Cup game tells me everything I need to know. They've already won this with LeBron. I don't think it's a priority. I just don't. I'll take a big number on Memphis. And then the team that I am taking to win it. I think the schedule lines up nice. It's the Houston Rockets. I think this Rockets team has really nice momentum building. After a tough 0-2 start, they rolled up the Nets, they rolled up the Raptors. And that is absolutely pivotal. I know those are bad teams, but you have to punish bad teams if you are supposed to be a great team. And at 18-1, we're getting a big ticket number here on a Houston team who needs to be dialed early because they're trying to get everyone to mesh together. And hosting Denver, to me, is absolutely important. The first game is home against Portland. That should work out nicely for them. I don't buy Golden State as much in this group as everyone else does. If we get the Rockets into the quarterfinals, I'm very, very happy to be holding 18-1. And while Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant, we saw all of that buzz for Alperen Şengün early season. We talked about his 400-1 MVP becoming a 100-1 win MVP, and yet he is way further back on this board to win Cup MVP than Kevin Durant is. Kevin Durant's around that 25-1 range. We're getting Şengün at 60-1. That's just a great piece of value on the team that I think wins the NBA Cup. You are not getting a Cup MVP on anyone other than the winner. You are not. And I think that means that Alperen Şengün should be much closer to Kevin Durant in this market because, it's all going to be these game-to-game plays, and I think Şengün at 60-1 is worth it. So those are my NBA Cup bets, okay? I'm glad we set that up. If you like any of them, we have a couple of these teams in action tonight. You have time to get involved. We actually have 4 of the 5 group winners in action tonight. So, again, I love the NBA Cup. We're going to have to be involved, and that means that we are involved. Let's get to that World Series next. We're going to also, at the top of the hour, talk to Coach Bowden around this college football slate tonight and this weekend. We are packed for you tonight. Don't you worry. We're locked in. It is a Friday night. It is Halloween night. It is game time decisions here on SportsGrid. There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Back right here on SportsGrid. It is a Friday night. Let's talk some Blue Jays Dodgers here. Now, Toronto is set up very well they have 2 games to win 1. But if they don't win tonight, they're not going to be favored to win Game 7. So they have a game in hand, but you know what I mean? Like, it matters a lot. It matters a lot. It matters, you can argue as much to Toronto as it does LA. You probably lose that argument, but you can at least make the argument. Here's what is so fascinating about this matchup tonight. This Dodgers offense has been very underwhelming in this postseason. And it is why, as someone who was on Toronto coming into the series, was not shaken by the matchup that was at hand. Because the Dodgers pitching was very, very likely to come back to the level, to, a normal level. And the Blue Jays offense was going to force that, and the Dodgers offense has not been scary. The 3 home run game from Shohei, the Dodgers scored 5 runs. The 2 home run game from Shohei, they scored 6 runs. This is not a team who has been explosive. They scored 18 runs against Cincinnati. They've scored more than 5. One time since that. And it took 18 innings to do so. So does that really count? And so much of it is on Shohei. And again, it's very funny. And I don't mind it. I actually encourage it. Please retweet me as much as you'd like, freezing cold takes. Because I said, are we going to have a conversation about Ohtani in this postseason? We should have a lot of conversations about Shohei Ohtani in this postseason. Most of them good. But here's the reality of Shohei. He's been very streaky. Now, the streaks are Joey Gallo or the greatest thing that's ever happened to the sport. So you'll obviously live with it. I'm not saying it's his fault. But take a look at these streaks from Ohtani and what we have seen during this postseason. First 2 games, 3 for 9, pair of home runs, 4 RBI. Jumped all over Cincinnati. In the next 6 games, same amount of hits, 20 more at-bats, no home runs, just 2 RBI. Then, one of the greatest 4-game runs you will ever see in your life. 9 for 15, 6 home runs, 8 RBIs, a gazillion walks, and the pitching performance. I mean, it was all there. And now Shohei, who was kind of put on ice like a kicker at the end of that 18-inning game, has gone 0 for 7 in his last 2. I don't think Shohei Ohtani is a guarantee to be great tonight. And again, I would almost say, this might sound, I don't think there's a world Ohtani hits 2 home runs in another game because the Dodgers won't give him, or the Blue Jays won't give him a chance to. If he hits another home run, he won't see a competitive pitch. And if the only pathway to offense is Ohtani, might be drawn dead. So I look at this as a spot that the Blue Jays get done, but it is not my favorite bet on this board. Under 4.5 hits allowed by Yamamoto. It says 3, it's 4. 4.5 hits allowed at plus 115. If you look at Yamamoto in this postseason, he has been so good. But this is kind of a bet that I think is almost a catch-22 that works in my favor. If he gets lit up, he may not be out there long enough to give up 5 hits. If he goes really long, it's probably because he's not getting hit around. He did not give up anywhere near 5 hits in either complete game. In fact, going back to the regular season, he's given up 4 or fewer hits in 10 of his last 11 outings. I feel really good about this Yamamoto spot tonight. Rest of the crew here, Dodgers, Jays, first 5 under 3.5 for Chris. I like that look. How about some Sam Houston State La Tech over from Sam in the back, which you absolutely have to appreciate and appropriately gets us set to talk a little college football with Coach Bowden. 2 really, really interesting games tonight and a ton of interesting games this weekend. That is next right here on SportsGrid. there's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions live with you on a Friday night. Kevin Walsh here, now joined by legendary head coach Terry Bowden. Coach, it is always great to get you on Game Time Decisions. I want to start with ranked Memphis at Rice and this race for that G5 playoff spot, which got a little more interesting with this Tulane loss yesterday, clears the path out for some of these other teams in the American. Memphis here, a little, 13.5, 14-point favorite on the road against Rice. Last time they were in this spot, Coach, they laid a huge number to UAB, and they clearly were looking ahead and got.
Well, that hurt them right there with UAB, and that pushed them back. But after they beat USF, South Florida, they know that every game is getting ready and auditioning for a chance to be in the college football playoff. And if they can win their conference, I mean, they're probably fitted into that 12th slot. So this is a big game. And Brendan Lewis, their quarterback, he was injured and did not play against UAB, but he's back and he's healthy. And they're playing Rice. Rice runs a triple option that's tough to defend, but they're the second worst offense in their conference. They're averaging 21 points a game. So there is so much on the line for Memphis. They need to have an impressive showing here to make sure they move up in the power rankings and then prepare themselves to win that conference if they can.
Yeah, Coach, the other game I want to ask you about on Friday before we get to the weekend, North Carolina tonight plays Syracuse. They are trying to get themselves in the win column. They've been close in their last 2 games. They now find themselves, though, against Syracuse's 4th, 5th string quarterback. I mean, a total unknown. How does this Bill Belichick-led group adjust to that?
Well, I think he does. He's got to focus on his own team. They have found they are getting better. They've had 2 games that they've lost, that they've had unfortunate things happen. I didn't think they could play better this year, and they are playing a lot better. If this quarterback is worse than the last one they had at Syracuse, they're in even better shape. But I don't think he overplays that they've got a bad guy or a guy that hasn't got any reps. I think at this point they need to focus on what they're beginning to do well, focus on ourselves, and play our best game. Because now, if it's a dual threat fella that can run a lot differently, they'll make different rush lanes, different way of attacking that. But pretty much North Carolina, when you're trying to build your program and turn it around, just focus on the things that you need to do better, no matter who you're playing and who the quarterback is.
So, Coach, speaking of quarterback questions, Arch Manning banged up in their most recent outing, but he's trending towards playing. And Texas finds themselves now I mean, who would have imagined? Texas is playing Vanderbilt, trying to get a top 10 win. What are you looking for in this game tomorrow?
Well, obviously, we're all going to wait and see what the final decision is on Saturday. And of course, I have had a lot of experience with concussion protocol, as all coaches do. Not likely most guys come back in a week. And then a quarterback with a name like Manning, they're going to be very cautious. Everybody's going to want him to play. The kid's going to want to play. That doctor has a set of rules. He'll follow them strictly, and he won't vary from that because we've got a kid's head involved in this situation. But you know what? They're playing Vanderbilt, and they have a guy named Diego Pavia. I don't care who they start at quarterback at Texas. I think the difference maker in the game is Diego Pavia. I think the opposite style that they run, he has been a difference maker, a gamer. And in a 2.5 number like this, if it comes down to the last series of the game and he's got to get one more first down, Pavia will find a way to get one more first down to not let the other team on the field. If they've got to have one more field goal to win the game, he'll find a way to get one more score to win the game. I think he's the difference maker, whether it's Arch Manning or his backup. I think the more important thing is they're playing. I've got Vandy winning this game outright.
This is a game that if Vanderbilt is able to get, I mean, it's home against Auburn, home against Kentucky. They'll be a favorite in each of those.
Yes.
They close at Tennessee, but at 2 losses, Vanderbilt may get in. I mean, you could argue that a win here would get Clark Lee's group. I mean, Coach, because you've been at programs that are trying to fight up. How impressive would this be if Clark Lee has Vanderbilt in the college football playoff?
It's incredibly impressive because we've had coaches win a few games, James Franklin, have a winning record or two there and go to a bigger job. But to actually be in contention for the SEC championship, that's why now that I'm in the business of looking at these wagers that I have a hard time of thinking correctly about Vanderbilt because I have this perception of when I was coaching in the SEC, they're always not quite as good as everybody else. But right now, I've quit doing that. As long as Diego Pavia is there and Clark Lee has them playing like this, I'm riding them. And I do believe they'll find a way to beat Texas in Texas the way they are playing right now. Remember, they haven't been 7-1 since 1941. So it makes sense that we're having a hard time following them now and seeing how far they go. But I think we need to realize they're playing great football, and they've got a winner at quarterback.
They do. It has been incredible, Coach. So Florida, Georgia, it's an interesting spot. Billy Napier fired after a win, and the Gators take that into a bye week, into the matchup with their biggest rival in Georgia. What are you expecting from this game?
Well, I mean, it's the largest outdoor cocktail party, as they call it. And, you know, it's hard to have fun at a cocktail party when the man of the house has problems, and they've just removed the man of the house at Florida. And there's a lot of discouragement there. I'm not talking about fans. They all want to fire a coach. I'm talking about assistant coaches for players. When you're playing a team like Georgia, who needs everything they can get because they are ready to get back. They're so tired of hearing about Alabama, and they're a very good football team. I think Florida's just going to try to keep focused and do the best they can. I just don't think with all the things that have happened there right now and how much Georgia is locked in on the future of their season. And the biggest thing is not a quarterback in this game. The best game day coach in the business is Kirby Smart. Best halftime adjustments, best getting your kids up for a big game, best getting your team ready for the postseason. I think he'll have his team playing their best football. So I'm riding Georgia all the way. And I think Florida, you know, they'll do as best they can, but I see them kind of limping their way through the rest of the season.
And the one thing I want to say, just to Coach's point, for my perception breaking that game down, give Kirby Smart a lot of credit for his ability to adjust in game, like Coach said. But I don't think Kirby Smart is interested in trailing at the end of every first quarter or first half like they do.
No, I mean, it's obviously there's another side to it. There's a couple of things going on. One, everybody gets everybody's best game, their best shot against Georgia. And most people don't wait for the second half. If they've got a great series or a great plan, they're going to throw it all out there at the beginning of the game. And I will say this about Georgia. They don't have the type of the level of defense they have had in this championship years. This is not his best football team. That's why I said this isn't about Georgia's best defense. They fall behind early all the time. This is about the coach that's able to take this team and make them a a college football playoff team and a possible SEC champion contender, the way he's able to recognize what's going on and get that team playing better. That when they can't put pressure on the quarterback, they don't get very many sacks. They give up too much yardage. And so he's able to overcome that. That's why, to me, the X factor for Georgia right now is his ability to work through this team that's not as talented on defense as they have been.
Coach, I'll ask you this one to close here. Tennessee, Oklahoma. I think pretty obviously the loser has 3 losses. This is an eliminator. When we talk playoff, who are you giving the advantage to?
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with Oklahoma just because of not just defense. Because, one, you got a top 10 offense in Tennessee. They can score. You got a top 10 defense in Oklahoma. They can keep people from scoring. Tennessee's big, and the X factor here is John Mateer. He has not gotten back to the level before he got injured. And now I think he's about ready to get back. And Tennessee has given up 24 or more points in every SBS team they played this year. They've given up 24 or more offensive points. And so this is going to be one of those games where Oklahoma's defense is going to lower the standard at Tennessee, although they're going to score some. Oklahoma, with John Mateer playing like he did early in the season, they'll be able to score more than them. So I'm taking Oklahoma.
Yeah, Coach, I don't mind that look one bit. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to follow. Legendary head coach Terry Bowden. We appreciate it as always. Let's look to the NFL weekend next.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point, but if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas
in the fourth quarter,
yeah, come on,
right? I mean, really, I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're live on SportsGrid here for a Friday night, and we are now going to talk a little bit about the, I think, unsung, because this first place Denver Broncos. I know it's like we don't know how great they're going to be, but it is the AFC West. To help us do that is Luke Evans. He does an excellent job covering this team for the Denver Post. You can catch his work over there or on Twitter @by Luka Evans. Luka, we appreciate you making some time here before a pretty important game this weekend.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's two of the best defenses in the NFL going at it. Two of the best edge duos in the league going at it. So that's going to be it's an exciting. All the games are exciting at this point. I mean, Denver's 6-2 in a spot that maybe a lot of people didn't see him. So I agree with you.
The interesting thing about this Denver team is a lot of the questions are around Bo Nix, and we can debate the validity of those questions. There is no question about this defense, and you can win a division, you can be in the playoffs with an unbelievable defense. But the Pat Surtain news, the reigning defensive player of the year, is obviously concerning. Your read on this team, how much do you trust the defensive level to maintain in Surtain's absence?
Well, if you go around the locker room, if you talk to defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, if you talk to anyone really, there's a high level of confidence just around this group that, next man up mentality. It's cliche to say, but the Broncos have a guy behind Surtain that they really like, second year corner Chris Abrams-Drain. They have Riley Moss, who is one of the more polarizing cornerbacks in the league, just in terms of the penalties he draws, the targets he gets.
Yes.
But he is playing overall, I think, an extremely high level of football. They also have first round rookie corner Jahdae Barron. We'll see if he factors in. So there's definitely a level of confidence in the secondary. I don't think, Houston's offense has not shown the ability consistently for 8 games to put excessive pressure on defenses. And then, when you have a pass rush like the Broncos, that can make up for a lot of glaring issues. And Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, the quickness with which they get off the ball, there's still a ton of confidence in this defense. Even with Pat Surtain out, it'll be interesting to see, does Riley Moss take Nico Collins? That's a fun matchup to watch for sure.
So for this team on the offensive side of the ball, when we're talking about the highest level, that's where the questions funnel. There is an area, though, that, again, there aren't a lot of questions. I think for a lot of times when people are like, who's the best offensive line? Oh, it's got to be the Eagles. Oh, I guess it's the Lions. It's not either of those teams. It seems pretty obviously to be the Denver Broncos by all the metrics that get sent out. Menarez was slaughtering people. I think it has to be a penalty. You can't beat up that many guys on one play. This Denver offensive line, Luka, when you watch it week in and week out, do they feel like the best unit to you up front in the league?
Man, I'm not an O-line guru, but they're playing in terms of, I'll say this, pass blocking. Bo Nix is extremely adept at avoiding sacks, but Garrett Bowles, left tackle, he hasn't allowed a pressure in 2 games. He's just been having, a season worthy of the Protector of the Year award. Obviously, you mentioned Quinn Miners, Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. They lost Ben Powers for a while, their left guard, but Alex Palczewski, backup, has stepped in real well there. And as long as you have that front, you're going to put together a half decent offense. It's taken time for Denver to kind of find that, but they're J.K. Dobbins, who they brought in pretty late in free agency, has just been a revelation at running back. And, they're opening up plenty of holes for him. RJ Harvey is starting to get going, the rookie. So this offense is clicking at the right time. Now, you have to say they played a truly abominable defense when the Cowboys last week. So you have to wonder if that'll hold up against Houston this week. So we'll see, but certainly pointing in the right direction.
It's very interesting because if it was just about playing Dallas, I don't know how much you could glean from the Bo Nix performance, but it was a carryover from the best quarter he has played maybe of his life. It is arguably the best quarter any quarterback has played all season long for the sophomore out of Oregon. Where are you at as he stacks up to the rest of this conference right now? Because that is the big question around this football team.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I don't know if you've seen the things on Twitter where it's like, people are like, oh, let me go watch basketball with a calculator or whatever. Let me go watch football with a calculator.
Yeah.
I think, but when you look at the raw numbers overall, I think they paint a pretty decent picture of where Bo Nix is through 8 games. There's been, he's been up and down. The Broncos offense has been up and down, but overall he sits pretty squarely, I think, in the middle of the NFL in terms of starting quarterbacks, maybe slightly towards the upper tier. But I think what he can really hang his hat on, I mean, he's been when the moment is called for it, he stepped up all season long. He plays better and in more rhythm. You can see when the game almost speeds up. And I think Sean Payton found a little bit more just of a comfort as a play caller, and the offense executed better in terms of blocking, especially in the screen game. And so all these phases kind of came together against Dallas, and that is something that helps a second-year quarterback. So I think he's trending in a really strong direction right now. He's handling pressure. He's handling the blitz a lot better than he did at the start of the season. There's a lot, his arrow is pointing squarely upwards. And now we'll see again, how he attacks a Texans defense that is going to play a lot of quarters, etc. But again, I'd say he's on the right trajectory.
Quarters. Twitter tells me you beat quarters deep. The big. Yeah. I am very, very excited to continue to watch that trajectory, though, of Bo Nix, because it really is one of the most important things in the AFC this season. Luka, we really appreciate it. Best of luck throughout the season. I'm sure we'll check in again.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
Again, Luka Evans, you can find his work for the Denver Post. Find him on Twitter @ByLukaEvans. That is a huge game this weekend against the Texans team that if they are going to have any life to bring that season back, they need to actually get the job done there. We'll see if Denver can hold them off. We'll be right back with more Game Time decisions.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Hey, Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point, but if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas
in the fourth quarter,
yeah, come on,
right? I mean, really? I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, let's do some live updates for you guys right here on SportsGrid, as we like to do. Is the ice live tonight? Bad job out of me for not being 100% positive of that. It is? That's right. There was a 4:30 game. The Avs have already beaten the Golden Knights, scoreless early on between Washington and the Isles, and then late night you've got the Ducks and the Red Wings going. That college football board is off and running. Memphis is up early, 7-0 on Rice. I was going to bet Rice at 14. But I don't think you're getting the best number you could get on Rice all year due to their upset of UConn last week. And Memphis, getting caught by UAB, I also think maybe spoils the likelihood they get caught here. I stayed away from the game. That is certainly the direction that I led or I was leaning. I just will reemphasize, like we said off the top of the show, keep your eyes on these G5 teams this weekend and next, okay? In the American, South Florida, Memphis, North Texas, Navy. You actually have, it is, I believe, North Texas versus Navy this weekend in what I think would be kind of labeled an eliminator. Navy still has to play Notre Dame, too, so that's not going to work in their favor. But now, listen, who knows? Again, like the ease at which we speak with Notre Dame winning out is uncomfortable to me sometimes, but Navy, North Texas kind of sets up as an eliminator. Tulane was removed from this entire thing. That JMU number. So, guys, we did a big JMU breakdown on Tuesday, and that number is cut majorly because they won a game with a tricky road 6.5, 7 number, and Tulane lost theirs. Big time numbers on the Mountain West, Boise State and San Diego State. But those are the teams that are right now being booked in the market when we talk about making the playoff. NBA action is live right now. We will get to that. I want to just piggyback a little bit off of that really good conversation we just had with Luca around the Denver Broncos. I want to give you guys a little early insight into Buffalo, Kansas City, because this game has been discussed throughout the week. A lot of it through the prism of Mahomes versus Allen, of course, not incorrectly. And then it leads to people saying, what's on the line in this game? What's at stake? And again, you hear nothing. If Buffalo wins, so what, right? They always win the game. It doesn't mean anything. If Kansas City wins the game, I mean, that's not great for Buffalo. There will be some zags if we're going to reverse it this year, right? I want to push back on that. The winner of this game, you already know what the conversation is going to be. Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl favorite, MVP favorite. That's for the winner. But what's being missed in the lead up is where the loser will be, which is no longer the favorite to win their division. I'm a little surprised, but the Bills and the Chiefs, year in, year out, top of their division. This is why they play every year. Here's something crazy, unless it's the time for the East and the West to play one another next season, which would be insane and hilarious. You might not get this one next year. If Buffalo loses, New England's a favorite against Atlanta, will be a full game up, plus already beat the Bills in Buffalo. Not to mention, all of a sudden, the Bills would have lost to the Pats, lost to the Bills, and their big-time victory was a 1-point, once-in-a-season comeback against the Ravens. So the resume would be wildly uncomfortable. Here's a prediction. Bills lose, people are going to start asking if they're going to miss the playoffs. But what about Kansas City? You know, the current Super Bowl favorites, the untouchable tier number 1 gods of the league. They're 5-4 if they lose in Buffalo. And the Denver Broncos are a win away from being 7-2. And the Chargers are a double-digit favorite in Tennessee. If the Chiefs lose, no matter what, they're third place in their division through 9 weeks of football. That's not a small sample. This is a big game every year. It's a big game this year. It is a big game for a completely different reason than any other season before. The loser of this game through into November will not be the favorite in their own division. Mark my words. We will continue to follow this live slate, but let's get some inside information. Adam Kaplan joins the show next, right here on a Halloween Friday on Game Time Decisions.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Hey, Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, it looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year. And I think big picture, they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions. We are with you on a Friday night, and we are going to continue to get you set up for Game 6 of the World Series. Don't worry about that. But we always want to get you set up for the weekend as well, which is why we bring in NFL insider Adam Kaplan. And, Cap, there was huge news out of the NFL today, which was Chris Greer fired the GM of the Miami Dolphins. Now, we speak to Cap every single Sunday on Pro Football Today. We will do that again. I am sure, Cap, more information will roll out. But here on the day of the news, what was your biggest takeaway, or maybe what did you learn around this situation?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, I don't want to wish anyone ill will. Chris Greer's a good man. He's been in the league a long time, and you might remember his dad, Bobby Greer. But, I mean, every time people would ask about Mike McDaniel, I'm like, why aren't you asking about Chris Greer? Because if you look at the roster, several mistakes. The trade of Jonnu Smith made no sense to me. He wanted an extension. They didn't want to give it to him. So what? So your alternative is to get Darren Waller out of retirement? Oh, he's on IR again. Never built a good offensive line. That's another problem. Tyreek Hill trade was fine until Tyreek Hill got hurt, unfortunately. Jalen Waddle was a good pick. Tua, you should have taken Herbert. You know the talk. Secondary's been bad, really, for years. It's just not a very good roster. That's what happened here. Now, as I try to tell people, in fact, I mentioned on one of the shows on SportsGrid that the owner really likes Mike McDaniel. I didn't see it happening in season. Now they put the statement today. It's not going to happen. He'll get through at least to the end of the season to determine his fate. But Kevin, the way it works is, though, when a new GM comes in, they like to have their own head coach. I'm talking to guys who became GMs, and sometimes they didn't get their way. They thought of it this way: do I wait to see if a job will be open next year, or do I take the job? Well, you take the job because it's money. And it's way more than 4 to 5 times than you're making. So you typically just take the job and you hopefully work it out with the head coach that you got to keep. But Mike McDaniel is a phenomenal offensive mind. He, by the way, if he does leave the Dolphins, he will be number 1 on head coaching candidates list to be their offense coordinator. He's brilliant. But the other thing is the ability to connect with players and get them to buy in to do what you want. I know the players say they like him, but the results are different.
Gosh, Cap, I don't know if this is something that can even really be talked about, right? And I don't know, but it feels to me that them not firing Mike McDaniel says that they, in this moment, when you divvy up the blame between Greer, McDaniel, and Tua,
Go ahead.
they have McDaniel certainly underneath not just Greer, but Tua Tagovailoa as well.
It is fair to say, Kevin, it is also, you should know, you can go back 25 years. It's rare in season that the head coach stays and the GM does not. Now, you saw last year with the Jets, Saleh went, then Joe Douglas went. Most of the time, not always though, most of the time the head coach goes first. Now, as I told you earlier, Stephen Ross really likes Mike McDaniel. Really does, according to a team source. Like, he really likes him. But if Stephen Ross can do whatever he wants. He's a billionaire. But when he starts looking at head coaching candidates, or excuse me, GM candidates first, there are going to be some guys who are not going to want McDaniel. That's just the way it is. And you don't want to limit your pool. I'm going to give you my list of candidates. There are about 7 or 8 who are at the top of the heap. Some guys you might not be familiar with, but from what I'm told, these guys are going to get big looks. And you want to be able to have the total pool. You don't want to limit yourself because what's going to happen is typically you have people like Stephen Ross will have people helping him find the next general manager, and they have to do work behind the scenes with the coaching agents or the GM agents in this case, like Jimmy Sexton and others. Hey, would your guy be willing to work with Mike McDaniel? They need to know that going in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Cap, the trade deadline is approaching, and there was a bit of news that was out there that I remember we asked you about on Sunday. You're like, it doesn't feel very likely, which is Brian Thomas Jr. getting moved out of Jacksonville. I would imagine the Travis Hunter injury makes that go from unlikely to absolutely no chance now.
No, but one thing I do want to say with Brian Thomas, you have to understand, and this is just the way it works. I don't agree with it, but this is what happens. You have a new general manager. You have a new head coach. They inherited this player. Brian Thomas was phenomenal as a rookie. Talking to the Jaguars occasionally during the season about Thomas and other players, he was so far ahead of schedule. He's so talented. I know he's had a rough year. It hasn't been what we thought it would be in his sophomore season, but he's too talented to move. But the thing is, though, I could tell you for a fact they're not saying he's not available. That's the word I got. Not like they're not trying to move him, but usually when you don't want to move a player or you're absolutely against it, you're like, we're not going there. You can ask about somebody else. That's not happening quite yet. But what I would tell you is they're not looking to move him. I'd be surprised if he's moved. But the way it works in the National Football League, unless you tell teams he's not available, they'll call. Like when teams are calling Ford a couple of years ago, the Patriots kept calling about A.J. Brown. The Eagles were like, we're not trading him. And then they got his extension done. But you have to ask. Like I remember when I put the report out, I got yelled out by the Vikings. I wasn't wrong when they made Adrian Peterson available for a trade. They denied it. They put a statement. I got a call. I got an angry call about it. Other teams told me they were listening. I mean, so again, teams are going to say what they want, or what they're going to tell reporters, but you got to talk to the right people.
Well, you mentioned A.J. Brown. I can't help but laugh because, I don't know, this situation is so fascinating. It won't go away. And what has become abundantly clear, there isn't a single thing that could be happening with the Eagles where people can't turn it to, see, bad for the A.J. Brown relationship. They threw the ball a ton with success to him against Minnesota. They were like, yeah, but I don't know. He seemed a little angry. Maybe he's not injured, right? Like, Cap, it won't end.
No, but here's what happened, though. What he didn't like is the passes were not on schedule. It's kind of like with Mahomes and Josh Allen. You got to come back to the ball. Sometimes you get it when you're not supposed to get it. That is, to me, that post on IG a couple weeks ago. I thought that's really what he meant. I know people are like, why would you look at it that way? I'm like, because I know the way receivers think. They want it on schedule. If it's a 3-step drop, that ball's got to be out. He wanted the ball within timing, like he had with the Titans. But yeah, the A.J. Brown stuff's fascinating. This is more of a March discussion about whether he could be traded. I think it would be more realistic in March than it would be when you're trying to win a Super Bowl again. And you know as well as I did. I heard you before I came on here. It is completely wide open, Kevin, for a Super Bowl run this year. Anyone can do it if you get in the playoffs. This is not 32 teams. There are no dominant teams. That's the bottom line.
Well, and maybe we'll end with this, Cap. We talked a lot about the Miami side of that game, rightfully so. But the Baltimore Ravens, have to feel incredible right now about their chances, across the board.
Pittsburgh is struggling right now. Their defense, I'm told, communication-wise, is not very good. The scheme, they're not executing well. They're in a tailspin. Look at the Ravens' schedule the second half. How could a team was so good last season have the schedule? Their schedule is one of the best. And the way that I grade schedules, it's really, really good. I know I said on Fox Sports Radio to my friend Kerry Rhodes, there's no way when they were 1-5 they could win the division. Oops, I spoke too soon. They absolutely, Kevin, have a chance to do it. The Steelers, man, their offense is fine, but, man, their defense is completely fallen off.
Yeah.
I am worried about the Steelers, man. I am really worried about the Steelers right now.
Yeah, I think to your point, Cap, it was the perfect storm. They beat the Bears without Lamar. The Bengals choked that game away against the Jets.
Yeah.
The Steelers lost in that whole game. They were up 9 at half and had held Green Bay to 7 in that first half. They lose the game. And before either one of those teams take the field, who are both underdogs this week, Lamar returns, throws 4 touchdowns, and the Ravens get another win.
Kevin,
that's where it is.
Just tell me this. How could Jordan Love go 20 for 20 in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. I would ask, why does that happen? And then Mike Tomlin says he has questions about the offensive ability on third down. Cap, appreciate it as always. We'll be right back on Sports Grid.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point, but if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas
in the fourth quarter,
yeah, come on,
right? Really? They got a gift last week.
Sports Grid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on Sports Grid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on Sports Grid. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where Sports Grid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid.
Game time decisions here on a Friday night with Sneaky, the best NBA bettor on Game Time decisions. Why? Because the only NBA advice Brady Cannon gave us this year was fade the ring, and I don't even know if Brady followed it enough because he's got so much going on, and it happened at this point what feels like a month ago, Brady, who's with us here, of course, but fade the ring worked like a charm. Despite 2 overtimes, the Rockets covered that game the entire way. They were up at the break. It all worked out nicely.
Yeah, the last couple of nights, I've been filling in for Gabe Morency, who was down watching his beloved Dodgers in Chavez Ravine, had some trouble getting back home. So I filled in for him with Scott Wetzel a couple nights in a row and made some bets there for the show. Of course, had the Miami Heat +6, lands right on the number last night against the Spurs. They were winning that game at different times. I mean, NBA betting is so hard. I think it is really geared towards in-game wagering. I think pre-tip wagering in the NBA is very, very difficult.
It's very funny. It's very funny you say that. As my little tracker I've been doing would very much agree with you. Stop betting props before the game. Just bet them at half, Kevin. Brady, let's try and figure out what's really started to stand out to you, though, for this Sunday in the NFL. I love getting to do this on a Friday. Is there one game right now that you and the team, with the show, have really found yourself settled in on?
My partner pointed out a spot that I didn't realize, and we've seen the number come down a little bit, and that's the Carolina Panthers getting 13.5. And there's still some 13.5s out there, but I've seen it pop down to 13 in some spots, and who knows, maybe we'll go lower. And it's hard to take a dog these days, right? I read an article, Evan Abrams on Twitter does a great job putting out some tremendous stats and trends and that type of thing. This has been the most profitable season for favorites since 2009 through the first 8 weeks. And myself personally, I got crushed last week. I mean, with all those favorites coming in last week. So it's hard to have the courage to step up and take an underdog in these days and times in the NFL right now. But you figure the worm has to turn. But I like the scheduling spot that, again, my partner on the Las Vegas Football Contest show pointed out. We all saw Jordan Love just tear up the Pittsburgh Steelers and really outshine Aaron Rodgers in what was the big storyline, Rodgers' return to, his former team type deal last Sunday night. But it was Jordan Love who was the star, had a magnificent game. Packers win that one going away in the second half. And now, they're a 13.5 point favorite or whatever. Oh, by the way, next week they take on the Philadelphia Eagles. And, that they have been saving a few things, working a few things in practice for that game. They were ousted by the Eagles in the playoffs. So this looks like a soft spot in the schedule to me. And Carolina has also gone back to exclusively Rico Dowdle and not trying to do running back by committee, but he's going to be the lead dog. I like that formula. I think the Carolina Panthers can stay competitive here. I made the number 10.5, so maybe they catch Green Bay sleeping for a week here and Green Bay wins by less than 13. I think that's probably very likely.
I am very glad you mentioned this game. We all have our own processes. I try and just, set things up on Sunday, and then I'll circle back over the weekend. And I don't think I noticed how much this number's been really running towards Green Bay. It looks like maybe it's coming back a little bit, but similar. I thought 9.5, maybe it's 10, a little bit higher. I mean, 13.5.
Yeah.
This is about what Green Bay was laying to Joe Flacco in his first start with Cincinnati. It does feel a little out of bounds here. What else is starting to jump out, Brady?
I think I'm I'm getting risky. I'm typically an underdog player, and that's been the death of me the last few weeks with these favorites going crazy. But you got to stick to it. It typically does balance out. We don't know when. That's the trick. When is it going to balance out? Next season? Next week? Next month?
Yeah.
But I'm going to try the Las Vegas Raiders here. Max Crosby is now listed as probable, as is Brock Bowers. I think both of those guys are going to go. When you have two teams that are both off of a bye week, these games tend to stay under the total. And that's what we have here with both Jacksonville and the Raiders off of a bye. So if you've got if we're expecting a lower scoring game, points are going to be at a premium. So I'll take the +3. It's pretty much 2.5 everywhere. Now there's still 3 in the Las Vegas Super Contest out here at the Westgate. And if you can find a 3, I think that's a good number. And I think it moved to 2.5 when Travis Hunter went on IR for Jacksonville. They're struggling. they should be able to get right, but are they really deserving of being a road favorite? And also, I know the Raiders are bad, but their last game, they were blanked. They were shut out, historically bad. It's already happened twice this year successfully, and over the course of time, teams that are shut out typically respond and cover the number more often than not. I think we finally get a decent effort out of the Raiders here. Wouldn't be surprised if they won outright.
Brady, I'll end with this. Blue Jays Dodgers tonight. You're in town, right? I mean, you know what those conversations are. It's still close enough. What are you thinking about this big World Series game? Maybe what are you hearing around this one tonight?
Well, Yamamoto. I mean, this would be a third straight complete game if he can pull it off, and that's really what the Dodgers need. You have to avoid that bullpen. I also think Kevin Gausman has been pitching up above his head a little bit here. His xFIP is about twice of what his ERA is, and so I think he's due for some regression here, and especially facing a couple of deadly left-handers like Ohtani and Freddie Freeman. I think those two guys have a big night here. Wake up the bats for the Dodgers, and they win this one and force a Game 7. And that's what I want the most. I did bet the Dodgers tonight because I feel the situation is good. But most of all, I want to see it go 7 and the best team win.
It's going to be a lot of fun tonight. It has been a treat of a World Series. I think anyone can agree on that. And I think that it's important that this World Series has felt like this as opposed to what the NLCS felt like. If we would have had a repeat of that, I think it would have been a really off-putting series and just kind of situation overall. Brady, look, we appreciate it as always.
Right?
Oh,
Toronto's
no doubt.
Nobody expected them. Dodgers in a sweep. Give me laying a game and a half with the Dodgers. No, the Blue Jays have been outstanding. Let's hope we go 7 games.
Yeah, we're going to continue to talk about this game on the other side of it. Brady Cannon, we appreciate it as always. It's a picks party. You know that's what we do on a Halloween night. GTD SU, Friday 5, best bets, everything you need after the break.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point, but if we see one of those performances, 17-14 Texas
in the fourth quarter,
yeah, come on,
right? I mean, really? I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year, and I think big picture they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back in a big way on a Friday night. We always like to update the live board. The update is going to come with some consideration. Quickly, end of the first period in Washington, and the Isles game is scoreless. In the NBA, it's a 20-point lead right now for Boston on Philly, which is good for our K7 play on Boston to win that group. Atlanta is up 2 on the Pacers. I think Indiana actually had jumped on them up early double digits, but that has now worked back the other way. Pascal Siakam is leading all scorers right now with 14. Toronto up early on Cleveland, not what we're looking for. That's going to be a grinder for the Cavs, though. They are a very banged-up group in that game. What I am tempted by is some live Rice. Now, we talked about this game already in this show, but just kind of to reset my thoughts, Rice at 14 was very interesting. They are similar to the service academies. The only teams that have attempted fewer passes, Army, Navy, Air Force. So you figure the ball's on the ground, it's going to be hard to extend. But what was working against Rice is, one, maybe not as good of a number as we would have wanted due to their upset against UConn, right? At home, 9.5-point underdog. They win that game outright in double overtime. Memphis, I know they were coming off of a huge win against South Florida. The week prior, in a very similar spot, lose to UAB, laying 23.5. So you can't let that happen again. Heading into this drive up 21-0, Memphis is now laying 31.5. At some point, Memphis is going to pull starters. Rice is just going to keep running the football. And that's going to allow us to stay inside a number. 31.5 to 33.5 is where this number is. Here's my thought, though, right? We can get 35.5 in this game. We can. We just got to be patient, I think. So that is one to watch for me. I am very, very interested in Rice live. Let's get some picks on the board, okay? Let's do the weekend college football Saturday, GTDSU. Game time decisions, State University. Tennessee laying the 3 for AJ. Little surprise there. He's on the Vols. Interesting. I didn't get to speak to him about that game. Little respect for Joey Aguiar. They are at home. It's got to count for something. New Mexico, UNLV over the 61.5. Classic Sam. Ohio State team total over 27 and a hook with the over in the Georgia-Florida at plus 113. I'm not mad at it. That is Chris's play. That is at plus 131, excuse me. My favorite bet, John Mateer, anytime touchdown. I know you might say, whoa, can we not get a prop? Sure. I like a lot of favorites, I think, right now in a college football board, but I plan on giving those to you on the Kevin Walsh Show, a SportsGrid podcast. We're going to try and get that out overnight. So my favorite on this board is John Mateer, anytime touchdown. You go back to last year at Washington State, he scored in 11 of 12 games. He scored in every single game before the injury. He's not scored since. This should be the healthiest he is against a terrible Tennessee defense. Give him Mateer to find the end zone at a glorious minus 105 number. GTD, Friday 5. Mystery Man does not deliver a 6-1. Gives us Bijan Robinson over the 35.5 receiving in the game against Atlanta. I don't mind that look. Giants Mooney line for AJ. Broncos Mooney line. Whoa. Double dog for Chris. Sam's going to play the under Chargers Titans. I am not mad at that. That game could be ugly. Give me the return of the big man, Brock Bowers, 50+. You can find this over on Fanatics at minus 115. Brock Bowers, in his one healthy game, had 100 yards against the Pats. Tight ends have been dominating the Jags over the last 4 weeks. I think Bowers, who said he's going to be back and ready to go, I believe him. Let's step up for Brock Bowers. Best bets tonight. Sam Houston State, La Tech over the 48.5 for Sam. Dodgers, Blue Jays under 3.5 for Chris. I am on Yamamoto under 4.5 hits at plus 115. Yamamoto has allowed 4 fewer hits in 10 of his last 11 starts, and I don't worry about him going long. The longer he goes, it's because he's not getting touched. If he doesn't have it tonight, I don't think he'll be left out there to give up 5, 6, 7, 8 hits. I don't expect that. I like Yamamoto under 4.5 hits. I think Toronto closes it out tonight. I think Gaussman steps up. I lean under in this baseball game. I said Jays in 6 before the series. I am sticking with that. Quick reminder for the NBA Cup group out there. We did a Kevin 7 tonight, some futures if you are interested. Knicks, Cavs, Wolves, Grizzlies, and Celtics to win their groups. The Rockets to win the whole thing. Sengun, MVP. In-game live is next. Happy Halloween.